The blizzard wasn't just weather that night. It was a predator. And Arthur Penn, a man the world had thrown away, was its prey. He had 72 cents in his pocket and a heart full of ghosts. He thought this was the night he would finally freeze to death in the alleyway of a town that didn't know his name. But fate had a different plan. A gunshot shattered the wind. A shadow burst through the snow. A German shepherd, bleeding, desperate, and carrying a secret worth millions. Arthur didn't know it yet. But the creature running toward him wasn't just a dog. It was the key to a fortune, and the target of a killer who was closing in fast. What happened in the next 10 seconds would not only save Arthur's life, it would change his bank account forever. But first, they had to survive the night. If stories about courage, betrayal, and the unbreakable bond between man and beast move you, do not look away. Subscribe to Shepherds of Hope right now. Join our pack and let's follow this journey into the storm. Snow swept across the town of Iron Creek like torn white curtains carried by a violent wind. It was late afternoon, but the sky was already a bruised purple. For Arthur Penn, a 60-year-old veteran with trembling hands, the cold was a familiar enemy. He was hunched inside an alcove behind the old textile mill. Arthur had been invisible for years. People rarely looked at him twice. But today, invisibility wouldn't save him. He heard it first. Not the wind. The breathing. Ragged, wet, desperate. Arthur looked up, expecting a coyote. Instead, he saw him. A German shepherd, massive, with a coat of tan and black, burst through the snow like a shadow with teeth. Crack! A bullet hissed through the air, ricocheting off a metal dumpster inches from Arthur's head. Arthur froze. The trauma of his past service locked his muscles. The second shot was aimed directly at the old man. But before Arthur could scream, the dog did the unthinkable. With no reason to save a man society had forgotten, the shepherd lunged. He twisted midair, putting his ribs between Arthur and death itself. The bullet slammed into the dog. A yelp, raw and sharp, tore through the blizzard. The powerful animal collapsed at Arthur's feet. Arthur scrambled forward. "No, no, no!" he cried. He pressed his dirty, shivering hands against the dog's fur. And that's when he saw it. This wasn't a stray. Under the matted fur on the neck was a tattoo, a serial number, and a heavy tactical collar that looked expensive, too expensive. "Stay with me, buddy," Arthur whispered. "Please." But the shooter was coming. Heavy boots crunched the snow. Arthur dragged the heavy dog into the deeper shadows just as a flashlight beam swept the alley. Arthur thought he was hiding from the police, but what he didn't know was that the man holding the gun was the police. You might think you know where this is going. A vet saves a dog, but what Arthur found, clipped to that dog's collar, that is what turns this story from a tragedy into a heist. They were safe, for now. In the damp cold of the mill basement, Arthur worked with shaky hands. He pressed his scarf against the wound. The dog, who we will call Rex, looked at Arthur with frightening intelligence. As Arthur cleaned the wound, his fingers brushed the tactical collar. It was heavy, thick, and there was a pouch attached to it. Arthur opened it. Inside wasn't a name tag. It was a key. An old iron skeleton key with a tag that read, Black Hollow Vault 402. And wrapped around it, a GPS tracker that was blinking red. Suddenly, the dog growled. "Find the dog! Leave no loose ends!" a voice roared from the floor above. Arthur recognized that voice. It was Sheriff Miller, the man who ran this town with an iron fist. The realization hit Arthur like ice water. The criminal Rex had been chasing wasn't a criminal. Rex was a K-9 officer. But he had turned on his handler. Why? Because Rex had found something he wasn't supposed to see. "We have to move," Arthur whispered. "Now." They fled into the storm, reaching the veterinary clinic on the edge of town. Dr. Elena, a woman of deep compassion, let them in. "He's a police dog," Elena whispered, seeing the tattoo. "Why haven't you called the station?" Arthur gripped the strange key in his pocket. "Because the station is the one who shot him." Ping! A news alert flashed on the clinic's TV. "Breaking news. Armed and dangerous fugitive spotted. Homeless man kidnaps police K-9. Shoot to kill, order authorized." They were framing him. Sheriff Miller spun the narrative. But Arthur Penn was about to stop running. He was about to realize that the key in his pocket didn't just open a door, it opened a war. Arthur looked at Rex. The dog was awake. He nudged Arthur's hand, then looked at the door. He knew where the key went. Against orders, they took Dr. Elena's SUV. They drove toward Black Hollow Ridge. But as they reached the trailhead, disaster struck. Floodlights blinded them. "End of the road, old man!" Miller's voice boomed. They were trapped. 3 deputies, Miller and high-powered rifles. This was the worst-case scenario. Arthur was unarmed. Rex was injured. "Give me the key, Arthur," Miller grinned. "The key to the evidence locker my predecessor hid. The one that dog sniffed out." Miller raised his gun at the injured dog. "Goodbye, Mutt." But what happened next would shock everyone. Just as Miller squeezed the trigger, a blur of motion exploded from the truck. Injured, bleeding, tired. It didn't matter. Rex launched himself. He slammed into Miller, knocking the gun into the snow. Arthur dove for the weapon. He rolled, grabbed the pistol, and pointed it at the corrupt sheriff. Then, the sirens wailed. Not local police, the state police, the FBI. Arthur hadn't just driven blindly. He had called the feds. The FBI secured the scene. They took the key from Arthur and opened Vault 402. What they found stunned the nation. Gold, cash, evidence of a massive weapons ring. Value? Over $20 million. But here's the part you won't believe. There was a reward for the recovery. A standard 10% finder's fee. $2 million. Agent Harlow handed Arthur the paperwork. "Mr. Penn, you're a rich man." Arthur looked at the check. Then he looked at Rex, who was safe at his feet. "I didn't find it," Arthur said. He did. Arthur used the money to build a sanctuary for retired K-9s and homeless veterans. And Rex? He never worked a day in his life again. Some people call it luck, some call it justice. But they knew the truth. They found the only treasure that matters: loyalty. If this story of justice touched your heart, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Shepherds of Hope. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon.